Folks, hello and welcome to the Tavern Chat podcast. I was gonna podcast about Kickstarter, about this fucking Luke Crane pile of shit, perfect RPG. Well, I have to wait at least today. Because thanks to none other than our very own Laramie. Laramie, I'm going to give you a shout out. You probably won't hear this shout out for weeks because I know you're behind on listening to the podcast. Laramie found something that I think needs to get addressed. I might have so much to read here that literally I'll have to move on to a second half of this podcast. It might not all get recorded in a single bit because Superior Court of Washington, County of King, dun 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 dun, who was located in King County, Washington State. Well, GenCon is a Washington State limited liability company. Peter Adkison, as well as Peter Adkison and Jane Doe Adkison and the marital community composed thereof, are being sued by Zak Smith. Yes, that's Zak Smith. Now, just reading about what is relevant, it's multiple pages. It's 13 pages. I don't know if my voice will last 13 pages. I might have to stop, get a drink, pause. If I have to pause, forgive me.
You're going to read all 13 pages?
No. I'm going to, it's a lot.
Long podcast.
Yeah. No, right. I'm not going to read all, but I'm going to read the parts that are, well, I hate to say it, but are relevant. And Zak gives his background. Okay. That's one of the earlier things. Zak is an artist. Okay. Says what degrees he has. He has a master's in fine arts from Yale. God bless him. His art has been displayed in numerous museums and galleries, including the Museum of Modern Art, the Whitney Museum, others. God bless him. In 2010, he started working, developing tabletop RPGs, and has won multiple prestigious awards. Yes, he has. I'm not going to take credit away from the man for the work he's done. All right. He was hired as a game consultant by various game companies, including the world's most prominent RPG game developer, Dungeons and Dragons. Again, yes, he was. I'm already getting parched. You see, I wet my non-alcoholic wetting in my breath, but still.
Wetting your whistle.
Wetting my whistle. Mr. Smith generates a substantial portion of his income from RPG consulting, development, and production. GenCon is the largest RPG show in the United States. It describes itself as the largest and longest running tabletop gaming convention in North America. The annual GenCon convention is a 4-day gaming show with an average of 70,000 attendees. I'm not even going to go. They list everybody, every kind of job title. Fuck it. But for consultants, developers, and producers of RPG games to succeed in that industry, they must attend GenCon. Until 2019, Mr. Smith attended GenCon for years. He generated a significant amount of his professional and business relations, consulting jobs, sales, and other business interests in the RPG industry from the event. Defendant Peter Adkison is co-owner and chairman of GenCon. So now we're going to get to where it gets a little bit more meaty, okay? On February 10th, 2019, during the zenith of the hashtag #MeToo movement, Mr. Smith's estranged wife published a lengthy Facebook post on her personal Facebook account accusing Mr. Smith of sexual assault and transgressions during their marriage. Those accusations are false. All right. First off, now we know that apparently, legally, Zak and Mandy were married. Interesting. In and around February 2019, defendants GenCon and Adkison published a statement about Mr. Smith on the GenCon website. The first paragraph of the web post addresses Mr. Smith directly by his first name and last initial, Zak S. The web post published actionable words and/or printed statements and/or published statements, which are false and defamatory. of Mr. Smith. Now here's the quote. At GenCon, we have a policy of not discussing the names of individuals that have been sanctioned or banned from our events. However, don't you like those words, however? Our statements regarding a recent ban have caused confusion and, more importantly, made people feel that GenCon doesn't care about attendee safety. To clarify, I want to state that Zak S. has been banned from GenCon and that we flat out don't tolerate harassers or abusers in our community or at our convention. On February 21st, 2019, so this would be, I'm not sure, I guess around the same time frame, Defendant Adkison published a Facebook post further identifying Mr. Smith as a GenCon publication subject. Defendant Atkinson's Facebook post reads, in response to the recent outcry against Zak Smith, I posted an open letter on the GenCon website uninviting him to GenCon. In response to a comment to Defendant Atkinson's Facebook post, he posed a Facebook reply containing actual words and or printed statements and or published statements, which are false and defamatory of Mr. Smith. There was due process. That's why it took us so long to come around. There were many people abused by Zak. The evidence was overwhelming. I don't need a court process to uninvite an abuser to my party. The Facebook reply is an admission by Defendant Adkison that he consulted people to inquire about facts relating to Mr. Smith's purported acts of harassment and abuse. On February 21st, Defendant GenCon Adkison published a Twitter statement. The tweet published actionable words and or printed statements and or published statements that are false and defamatory. Last week, we made a statement regarding our stance on abuse and harassment in gaming. Many of you told us it wasn't clear enough and we needed to take a firmer stand. We heard you and want to be clear. Zak S. is banned from attending. Read the complete statement, and then it gives you the link to the complete statement. The web post, tweet, and Facebook reply that Mr. Smith engages in abuse or harassment are false and defamatory. These statements contain serious false allegations against Mr. Smith in their plain and ordinary meaning or by virtue of the surrounding circumstances, which give the statements a defamatory meaning or by innuendo in that they falsely allege that Mr. Smith is an abuser. And I don't want to go through this allegation by allegation. If we're talking about Zak with Mandy or other relationships of a sexual or emotional type, I don't believe that there's been any criminal charges filed. So I don't know. We have statements. That doesn't make them factual. I'm not saying anybody lied. I'm just saying this wouldn't hold up in a criminal court of law. Doesn't have to, though, because this is a civil matter, right? It's a whole thing. Falsely alleged that Mr. Smith has committed abuse. Falsely alleged that Mr. Smith abused many people. Falsely alleged that Mr. Smith is a harasser. Now, being a harasser, you could say that if you wanted to, Zak has used a telephonic or electronic device to belittle, annoy, and generally harass individuals on Facebook and especially on the old Google Plus, right? Myself being one of them. But that does not make... I don't believe that he harassed GenCon, right? I'm not a defender of Zak Smith. I think he's a fucktard. I think he's an asshole. I think he's a piece of shit as a human being. That being said, those are my opinions. I'm not stating this as a fact. Maybe I am. In my opinion, it's a fact. Doesn't make it a fact. Falsely alleged that Mr. Smith has committed harassment, falsely portray him as a menace who puts the public at risk. I don't see that. I'm sorry. I almost want to say that I actually think Zak would be a bit of a pussy, but
oh damn!
I'm sorry.
Down there.
I'm sorry. I do. So I don't think he'd put the public at risk. There's nothing that
we don't want Zak coming for you.
Yeah. Well, listen. I don't think I cannot see Zak putting anybody at risk. I don't think he's a threat for physical harm. But that's just my thought. Falsely portrayed Mr. Smith as an individual to be feared. Again, falsely imply that Mr. Smith has committed a criminal offense. That's the biggie in my part. If you're implying that he has committed a criminal offense, then we need proof. That's where it becomes a real issue. Falsely attack Mr. Smith's ethics and professionalism. Fuck that. Okay? If you've seen how Zach is on social media, I would not say professionalism goes along with that, but whatever. Falsely attack Mr. Smith's credibility and integrity. You know what? That's kind of a matter of opinion. So, in any case, these statements were issued with malice and clearly intended to expose Mr. Smith to hatred, contempt, and ridicule. I can't argue with that. All right? Because again, I think if what he's accused of doing is true, he's more of a fucktard than I personally think he is for what I know he has committed in the community, the gaming community. All right? But, again, I have not seen even, I don't know. You know what? This actually might, by this going to court, might force things to come out into the open. It might say, all right, well, do you have text messages? Let's get you a copy of your text messages. And maybe her text messages to her friends aren't talking about what she alleges.
Does
that can be revealed.
Does the con need
that
legal backup for denying something?
No, they could deny him flat out. That's fine. Identifying him.
That's their discretion.
That's
right?
their discretion. But once they identify him and then they call him an harasser or abuser, I believe then they put themselves in illegal jeopardy. Yeah. And I would love to get the Canadian lawyer.
Oh,
what's his name?
Viva Fry.
Viva Fry. I'd like to see Viva Fry's opinions on this.
Dissect it.
But interesting stuff here. Continues. Since defendants made their publications and banned Mr. Smith from attending GenCon, it has made role-playing news, and it's been reported by Polygon, the major video game news outlet. It's been reported by everybody. It's been reported by me on the podcast, on the blog. It's certainly newsworthy. Since defendants made their publications and banned Mr. Smith from attending GenCon, Mr. Smith has lost his main game publisher, Lamentation of the Flame Princess. Multiple Lamentation of the Flame Princess projects completed production of went unpublished. So there's a loss of income. And now, was that directly related to GenCon? Remember, Drive-Thru also removed Zach and said they weren't going to publish anything of Zach's going forward. So, I don't know. Did they have something that's actionable that Zach can do? Did they make a public statement about Zach that, well, we'll see. A game Mr. Smith was in the course of working on, paying him $3,000 a month, was also suspended. Since defendants made their publications and banned Mr. Smith from attending GenCon, it was mentioned on Mr. Smith's Wikipedia page, which is Mr. Smith's #1 Google search result, which has caused immeasurable harm to Mr. Smith's reputation and income. Since defendants made their publications and banned Mr. Smith from attending GenCon, One Bookshelf, a digital marketplace company for both major and indie games, fiction, and comics, announced it would no longer work with Mr. Smith and would donate revenue generated from existing titles with Mr. Smith to the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. Since defendants made their publications and banned Mr. Smith from attending GenCon, Mr. Smith was blacklisted and banned from most of the relevant game forums. A presence at said game forums, particularly GenCon, is essential because they are a launching pad for newly developed games in the industry. They will provide Mr. Smith with an audience to defend his innocence. Since defendants made their publications and banned Mr. Smith from attending GenCon, Mr. Smith has been blacklisted in the game industry and has lost substantial income. Since defendants made their publications and banned Mr. Smith from attending GenCon, Mr. Smith has been shunned by book publishers in the art world and the film industry and has lost substantial income. Since defendants made their publications and banned Mr. Smith from attending GenCon, any internet searches of Mr. Smith's name return multiple attacks on his character from within the game industry and defamatory claims. Mr. Smith has suffered and continues to suffer significant damage to his personal reputation, business reputation, business goodwill, livelihood, and reputation in the community. Mm-hmm. Also, he has suffered emotional distress. I don't know about that one. I always thought that Zach was beyond having emotional distress. I could be wrong. I'm just saying, my opinion. My opinion. Don't know him well enough. Just know his persona online. Cause of action. Plaintiff incorporates into this cause of action all allegations contained in paragraphs 1 through 34. I know, it's a fucking shitload of reading. The web post published by defendants about Mr. Smith was false and underprivileged and made intentionally with actual knowledge of their falsity, with reckless disregard as to their truth or falsity, or negligently without due care and caution. Defendants knew that each of their statements and depictions set forth above was false, reasonably should have known they were false, and acted maliciously and with oppression with the intent or despicable conduct to harm Mr. Smith. Same shit goes with the tweet and the Facebook reply. Hold on a second. I gotta grab a sip here.
You have to wet your throat talcles.
Yeah, I got my throat talcles. As a direct and proximate result of the web post, tweet, and Facebook reply, Mr. Smith has suffered and will suffer emotional distress and continue to be embarrassed and humiliated by the false statements and implications, and reasonably fear that he and his work will be shunned, avoided, and subject to ridicule. Now, I'm going to make a short aside here. I don't really care what Zach feels emotionally, but fucking with the guy's livelihood, again, I don't believe in impersonating. So, in any case, as a direct and proximate result of the above described statements and depictions, Mr. Smith has been and will be exposed to hatred, contempt, ridicule, or obloquy to deprive him of the benefit of public confidence or social intercourse, or injuries.
Social
intercourse.
Intercourse?
Social intercourse, Rach. Don't ask me. Maybe it's listen. Maybe it's one of those online sex things. I don't know. I'm on social media. Well, I'm on social intercourse.
Okay.
Or injures him in his business, trade, and profession, and to the reputation and goodwill of his business. Harm was caused to Mr. Smith's reputation as to lower him in the estimation of the community or to deter third persons from associating and dealing with them. I know that James Raggy would take Zach back in a moment. They need each other. James, I know you're not listening to this. Neither is Zach. But even one of you are, fuck it. James, you don't need drive-through. You publish Zach's work. It'll sell through your company. It'll sell through your storefront. You'll both make high 5 figures, maybe low 6 figures on whatever you work, because all publicity is good publicity, even bullshit like this. As a direct result of the above described statements and identifications, Smith has suffered and will continue to suffer significant injury and damage to his reputation and his livelihood. Mr. Smith's business and personal relationships have been and will continue to be adversely affected by these defamatory statements. And therefore, defendants are liable to Mr. Smith for a tort of defamation and libel. So, they want the damages to be determined at trial, plus prejudgment and post-judgment interest, cost, expenses, and attorney fees. Holy shit. So they want damages for all this shit. I am not going to read as a direct result, approximate result of the above described statement depictions. Mr. Smith, we already read this stuff. He suffered damages through shit. Cause of action, outrage. A lot of this stuff is repeating stuff that we've already gone over. Banning Mr. Smith from GenCon based on a false accusation was extreme and outrageous conduct and done with the intentional or reckless infliction of emotional distress and caused Mr. Smith to suffer emotional distress. I don't know about the emotional distress. Again, I don't give a fuck about his emotional distress, but affecting him on the business side, because I know that was the reason to name him. My opinion, when I say I know in my head. It doesn't mean I know for real. All right? Don't want anybody going, Tenkar said he has inside information on this shit. I don't. Mr. Smith had and has the existence of a valid contractual relationship or business expectancy with customers that attend GenCon. Mr. Smith also has a prospective contractual business relationship with pecuniary value with customers who attend GenCon. All right. Some of these words that are such fucking... These are not even Gygaxian words, all right? So just fuck that shit. False statements. We did damage and more shit caused relevant damage. And oh my God. So what they want, the Washington CPA applies to the claims of Mr. Smith because the conduct which constitutes violations of the CPA by the defendant occurred within Washington State. Defendant's unfair or deceptive acts or practices occurred in defendant's trade or business and were capable of deceiving a substantial portion of the public. Defendant used or employed unfair methods of competition and or unfair or descriptive acts or practices. Mr. Smith has been damaged as a proximate result of defendant's violations of the CPA and has suffered actual, ascertainable losses. Defendant's unfair or deceptive acts or practices have injured Mr. Smith and have capacity to harm other persons and are injurious to the public interest. Now remember, James Raggy was hurt by this shit, all right? Lamentations of the Flame Princess has probably suffered more monetarily from this than Zach has. But Raggy should be a co-signer to this fucking lawsuit. As a direct and proximate result of defendant's violations of the CPA as set forth above, Mr. Smith has suffered an ascertainable loss and is therefore entitled to relief, including prejudgment and post-judgment interest, treble damages. Costs and attorney fees. So, there you have it. I don't have this paperwork I have in front of me doesn't seem to have a date on it. Could be wrong. I didn't see one. I can't tell you how recently it was filed. Let me go to the original here. No. However, it is dated court document 21-2-01684-3. So that would be February of 2021. Just don't know how recently, but yeah. So, folks, that's one of those holy shit moments, right? I wouldn't know what else to say about that. It really it knocks your socks off. So, personal opinion. I think Zak Smith is a cock. That language too strong? I think he's a fuck. I think he's a jackass and an asshole. I think Zak Smith is a bully, or tries to be a bully, at least on social media, having experienced it. And if he can't win an argument with you, which he's not able to win an argument with me or people like the Pope of the OSR, because I was just that fucking cop, he tries to label you and then he would block you. So he would block you on Google circles, so you couldn't participate on Google Plus, but you couldn't comment on his blog posts. So do I think that Zach is manipulative? Yes. Would I want to hang out with this gentleman? No. Do I believe he should be unpersoned? No, he's not. He has not been even indicted in a criminal court. Nobody's brought criminal charges against him. And then people say, well, you don't need to. Listen, if you are going to say you are banning somebody because they are a sexual assaulter and harasser, you better have fucking proof that would stand up in a criminal court. Because if you don't, I personally suspect you can be hanging out of your ass. And I would say if GenCon, I'm sure they're insured. I'm sure their insurance company is probably saying, you know what? Maybe if we pay mid-six figures, this goes away, and we're all good to go. Because if you having served on juries, I've served on a criminal jury, but I've served on numerous civil juries in my starting at 9. When did I start serving my first time? Maybe it was like 21. So between 21 and 51, over those 30 years, I'm 53 now, haven't served in about 2 years. But in those years, okay, in those 30 years, I served on numerous civil juries, and here's the secret. Nobody wants to put a cash reward into the hands of the jury. They don't. So
they don't even allow it in our state.
No, they do.
They do?
No, you can't. There's two.
I served on one they didn't really allow you. It was just like,
no.
All was it? Then the judge takes care of it.
Well, no, because here's how it works in New York State. There's two parts to the trial. You got to find fault, and
that was our job.
Fault requires 5 out of 6. Okay, so if you have a jury of 6, 5 have to find fault. If you find fault, you adjourn, and then they get ready to put together the second part of the trial, which usually follows right after. But what happens, in my experience, is that the two lawyers get together and go, holy fuck. All right, so listen.
Yeah, the lawyers made it pretty clear that the judge was going to be deciding what.
Well, like I said, for
how much.
What it comes down to is,
but he wasn't going anywhere because it was bullshit.
Well, but what happens in the cases I've been in is that the jury decides, and then the lawyers hash it out, because even if you win that first part of the trial, you don't want to. It's a crap shot. Maybe they're gonna say, yeah, you were at fault, but yeah, Zach's still an asshole, so we're gonna award $1. Or they can say, wow, you really fucked this person over. We don't like you.
They didn't trust people.
Well, you know what? That's why the lawyer. That's why the lawyers. Yeah, that's why the lawyers hash it out. No, that might have been unique for your case. They might have hashed it out ahead of time. So, folks, that's the deal. I expect to hear some feedback on this. If you want to email me, tenkarstavern@gmail.com. If you want to call, you can use the Discord app, or you can call the Google number at 347-509-5168. I know it's been a long episode. I apologize. Folks, we're still in the midst of the world of COVID. Please use your common sense. Other than that, safe, be well, God bless. Knock on wood. I'll be back with Bad Mike on Wednesday for a live stream, another live stream with Glenn Hallstrom, and both will have special guests. Friday night is going to be the 1000th episode of the Tavern Chat podcast. I know they were all melded into one. Folks, thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. And maybe I'll talk about that Kickstarter thing tomorrow. Shit, I'm exhausted. All right, laters.